Are you excited to see Conor McGregor make his return to the octagon just in a few weeks? Well, don't go booking those tickets to Vegas just yet. What's up, it's Sam Walker with Ringside Intel, and let's talk about whether Conor McGregor and Michael Chandler is actually going to happen or not. So during UFC 302, we got the commercial for Conor McGregor versus Michael Chandler as the headline of the next pay-per-view, UFC 303, which takes place on June 29th. That is International Fight Week, always a big card for the UFC. So seems like all signs are a go, right? Even shortly after, there was the announcement that there was going to be a press conference in Dublin, Ireland to go ahead and begin the promo run for this event. And just as swiftly as the announcement was made, the UFC rescinded that announcement, announcing that the presser was going to be postponed. And it's important to note that they use the word postponed and not canceled. The problem is, no answers were really given as to why. So of course, the speculation began. Conor, who has been seen in multiple social media videos partying very close to what's supposed to be a very big fight for him, he released a statement, and maybe I shouldn't say he released a statement officially through his social media channels. However, it's pretty clear that someone else wrote this, probably a publicist, but it reads as follows. In consultation with the UFC, today's press conference was canceled due to a series of obstacles outside of our control. I apologize to my Irish fans and fans around the world for the inconvenience and appreciate all your passion and support. I can't wait to put on the greatest all-time show in the octagon. So, essentially a word salad right there that we know he did not prepare. Pretty confident on that one. So still no answers as to why this was postponed and whether or not the fight itself is still going on. But as time continues, it's starting to look like this isn't going to happen. According to Ariel Helwani, the UFC is actively trying to find a replacement, whether that means a replacement for one half of the Chandler McGregor fight or just an entire overhaul of the main event. They're searching for somebody that can fill that spot. Meanwhile, some eagle-eyed observers have noticed that ESPN has sort of pulled its promotional push for UFC 303, noting that on the menu for ESPN Plus, 303 doesn't exist anymore. So from that perspective, this doesn't exist right now. Helwani brought up a very good point via his social media accounts that this would actually be rather unusual for Conor McGregor if he were just pulling out of this fight. Granted, this was a long time ago and a lot has changed with him since, but McGregor has not pulled himself from a fight. He's fought with injuries at times that would have been very detrimental to his rise if he were to lose. For instance, the Chad Mendes fight at UFC 189, originally supposed to be Jose Aldo, until Aldo was injured. McGregor elected to stay on the card and kind of hid his own knee injury that hindered him during training camp, and he fought a last-minute opponent in Chad Mendes, was able to get that win. Also, believe was injured coming into the Max Holloway fight. So in years past, he's someone who, once his name is on the calendar, reliably shows up. The only exception to that was UFC 200, where he was originally supposed to headline in the rematch with Nate Diaz. He decided not to show for a press event, and they took him off and put him on UFC 202 instead. But for an event as big as International Fight Week is, it really doesn't leave them a lot of options. I mean, we're going on just a matter of weeks until this event takes place. I mean, before the end of the month, International Fight Week is going to begin. So now who do you get to fill in that spot? So if you're talking about someone to replace McGregor and stand opposite of Michael Chandler, there are a few names that you can throw in there. But the problem is, none of those names are as appealing of a box office draw, a pay-per-view draw, or just a media buzz perspective as a Conor McGregor. Now, if you're going the opposite direction of that, and no iteration of this fight is going to take place at all on this card, and we're just blowing it up and we're coming in with an entirely different main event, perhaps your options are even more limited there. For International Fight Week, you've got to have a title on the line. I mean, that's pretty much a standard for one of the flagship events that the promotion puts on every year. But when you look at the list of champions, probably not a whole lot of options there available. Even someone who hasn't fought in a while like Dricus du Plessis, his name is tied up along with Israel Adesanya for an event that's supposed to be taking place in Australia. That's a huge market for the UFC, and they always do big numbers there. Can't imagine that fight's going to get pulled. Leon Edwards and Bilal Muhammad, earmarked for a Manchester main event. Now that is going to be a big draw over there too. Can't imagine that gets pulled. And then of course, Leon Edwards just nowhere near the level of star that McGregor is. So you really have so many champions that are either just coming off of a fight or tied up with another fight that's going to be big numbers for the UFC. So what do you think? Does Conor McGregor show up for UFC 303 and put on that main event versus Michael Chandler? Or does the UFC have to pivot? And if they go into another direction, what direction would you like to see them take? Remember to like, share, subscribe, tell a friend to tell a friend, tell that friend to tell 10 more friends. Stay locked into Ringside Intel. I'm Matt Walker. Peace.